My brothers and sisters, 3 weeks ago we had a guest speaker by the name of Dr. Jamal Badawi. And he offered the khutbah to us. One of the points that he touched, one of the things that he shed light on, was how the religion of Islam was a moderate and balanced religion. How this deen is a moderate deen, and how this ummah is a balanced and moderate ummah. And this is a concept that you will discover in any area and aspect of our religion. If you study the spiritual aspect, the religious aspect, the political aspect, the social and domestic aspects, and even in the articles of faith and in our belief system, you will come across and discover the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept in this religion of moderation and balance. Just one example. We believe in all of the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the utmost respect and reverence for all of these messengers. We hold all of them in very high regard. But we do not elevate them to the status of divinity. We follow their sunnah. We follow their footsteps. But we do not worship them. We memorize and use the supplications that they used, but we do not supplicate to the prophets. We do not make dua to the prophets. This is just one example of the balance and moderation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept in our deen and in our religion. And for today's khutbah, I will focus on the concept of balance in a particular area of our religion. And this is the concept and understanding of destiny. You know, when good things happen, or when bad things happen, or what we perceive to be bad, what is the moderation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in this area, in this concept? And again, I am going to be spinning off the broader theme that I so ever frequently mention, that our whole life in this world is a test. And during the lifespan that we live on planet Earth, while we are alive, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts many challenges and obstacles in our way. And we experience both prosperity and setback. We experience fortune and misfortune. This is all the package. This is all included in the package of life. Now, this is something that is talked about in the Quran a lot. When the human being is granted something, when something is taken away from the human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in many verses of the Quran. And at the same time, it is something that people get confused with very easy as well. And a lot of people get hurt by this because it is not well understood. The concept of musibah. Now, why is it important to understand the concept of setbacks, the concept of misfortune? The reason it's so important to understand that if you or if I understand the concept of musibah, I will understand how to cope with it, and I will help others cope with it. But if the concept of musibah is not understood well, it will make things worse for everyone around us. It will make a musibah harder to cope with. For example, when something bad happens to someone, if someone loses their job, If someone fails a particular class, oh, brother, this is happening to you because Allah is angry with you. This is happening to you because you deserve it. Oh, sister, this is happening to you because you do not wear hijab. These are statements that we may come across. We may overhear someone telling to someone may have told it to us, said something like this to us, or we may remember saying or uttering these type of statements to somebody else. See what happened? And this is used regularly. When something happens to the child, a parent uses this against their children. See what happens when you don't listen to Baba? See, this is what Allah does to you when you don't listen to your father, or when you don't listen to your mother. Spouses will use it against each other. See, this is what happened when you don't listen to your man. Or vice versa. And brothers know exactly what I'm talking about. So, not just on an individual level, but even in the bigger scheme of things. When we talk about calamities that, fall upon communities and neighborhoods, when there's an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado, any natural disaster, or when wars break out. So whether there is a musibah on a big scale, or whether it's on an individual level, you lost a loved one, you find yourself now dealing with a severe illness, or your car didn't start in the morning. Even if it's something as trivial as that, as human beings, some people may find themselves blaming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or start blaming other people around them, that this is happening to you because you deserve it, or so on and so forth. Now, there are two verses that I would like to bring your attention towards. Both of these verses are back to back in Surah Al-Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 155 and 156, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْجُوعِ وَالْخَوْفِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we will surely test you. We will surely try you. بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ, with something of fear, with something of hunger, and with the loss of wealth, lives, and fruit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is laying out the floor to explain to us what life is about. It is a challenge, it is a test. And Allah mentions different aspects of these tests. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, give good news, give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ. And then Allah explains, describes who are the sabirin, those people. إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ, when musibah comes upon them. First, let's take the word musibah. In our modern day usage of this word, even in Arabic, musibah means something big, right? Even in Urdu, musibah dhakiya. It refers to a disaster, a catastrophe, right? If you spill tea on the floor, we don't say, oh man, musibat, right? Musibah. So even in the modern usage of this word, musibah refers to something huge, significant, a catastrophe. But when you take this word in its literal meaning, musibatun, it comes from the root word isaba. Asaba yusibu isaba. Now what does asaba mean, literally speaking? When something specific intentionally reaches a specific target at a designated time and place, this is called musibah. When an arrow hits its target, bullseye, this is called asaba. When you reach somewhere, if you happen to find yourself somewhere at some destination, you took the wrong exit, that's balagha. Yeah, I got there, I reached there. It could be haphazardly, it could be intentionally. Someone pushed you in a car, let's take you there. But asaba means something very particular. That's why when you say something correct and you meant it, it's called sawab. Right? When you did something right, perfect, sawab. Now, in general in life, when something happens to us that we consider a setback, a misfortune, something that comes up in our life, right? The words haditha can also be used, waqi'ah can also be used. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the word musibah. What does that imply? It implies that when that thing happened to you, the reason Allah uses the word musibah, because as far as Allah's planning is concerned, as far as your destiny is concerned, whatever happened to you happened exactly how Allah planned it to happen. It happened exactly where it was supposed to happen, exactly when it was supposed to happen, and how deep it was supposed to happen. It is custom tailored. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says musibah, musibatun, mu'annath, the feminine form. And for those who are familiar with linguistics or the Arabic grammar, in this particular instance, adding a ta musibah, it gives it an individuality. Now what does that mean? You know, sometimes in our life, when something wrong happens, and we find another thing piling up on top of that, and it has a chain reaction in our mind, in our perception. For example, you had a flat tire. You woke up in the morning, your tire's flat. That set you back 20, 25 minutes. Right? Because of that 20, 25 minute delay, you missed that window of getting on the I-10. You know there's a certain window, if you get on the I-10 at this time, you miss the traffic. If you're 20 minutes late, you're stuck for 45 minutes. So because of that, you hit bad traffic. That day happened to be a very important presentation at work. You missed. Your boss became very upset. Your company lost the project, lost the deal. What happened? You lost your job. Because you lost your job and you were living month to month, you defaulted on your payment. You defaulted on your bills. Because of that, it started friction in the house. Because of that, now, certain time later, marriage is dissolved. Whatever. We may think that all of this happened because of that flat tire. But musibah means that each and every single thing that happened, it's self-standing. One does not necessarily lead to the other. Because there are other people who get flat tires and don't lose their marriage. You know that DirecTV commercial where one thing leads to another, leads to another? Don't change, don't switch over from DirecTV. Don't eat food from a can. Don't switch. These things are individual. So all of these happen specifically the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed it to happen. So each and every single thing happens. And when that happens, a true believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, who are the sabirin? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Now backtracking, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give good news. Who do you give good news to? When we congratulate somebody when something good happens, right? Oh, you got promoted? Congratulations. You had a son? Congratulations. Your son graduated from college? Congratulations. You graduated from college? Congratulations. We congratulate people when there is an achievement, when there is an accomplishment. When things go according to plan, we congratulate people. Do we congratulate someone who has been struck with misfortune? Oh, brother, I heard you lost your business. Congratulations. Brother, I heard you got fired. Congratulations. Alf mabruk. We don't congratulate people when something bad happens. When does a person do sabr? When something bad happens. When there is a setback. The Prophet ﷺ has explained this. The nature of the mu'min. In asabatu sarra shakar. فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرَ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. So when something goes wrong, when something doesn't go according to plan, that becomes the reason for sabr, right? So Work this formula out. Something bad happens, which causes you to be patient. Brother, congratulations. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. What is the meaning of this? Well, look at it this way. We may think in our life that our goal is to get that promotion. Our goal is to expand our business. Our goal is to get that education, to pass that class, to pass that grade, to move on in life, to be successful, prosperous, and wealthy people. We think of that as a goal. In the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a person to achieve and accomplish the trait of patience is a goal. This is an accomplishment. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, give glad tidings to those who are patient. Because patience, sabr, is a huge accomplishment. Why is being patient an accomplishment? Because in the description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives moving forward, it sets things into perspective. Now what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the sabirin? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The sabirin are those people that when a musibah comes upon them, okay, doesn't have to be a catastrophe. Remember, any setback. Once the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with Aisha radiallahu anha, and his lantern went out. And the Prophet ﷺ called it a musibah. And Aisha radiallahu anha said, this is just a lantern. The Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّ مَا أَسَاءَ الْمُؤْمِنِ فَهُوَ مُصِيبًا. Anything that puts a mu'min in inconvenience, that he doesn't like, is a musibah. So what do these people do? قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. We belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very, very important statement. And if we can internalize this statement, it will put everything into perspective. It would make everything clear for us. 2 weeks ago, I shared with you the dua of Musa alayhi salam, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to go to Fir'aun and pass the message to him. Did he just get up and go? He made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He acknowledged his humility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, oh Allah, make my task easy for me. When a person says, Inna lillah, it allows us to come back to the ground. Now what do I mean by that? As human beings, and especially if you have experienced a long period of prosperity and progress and success in your life, and you see everything going your way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Fajr that the nature of the human being is فَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّ أَهَانَ. That when a person who's prosperous, successful, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tightens it a little bit, قَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts a choke and restricts his rizq, رَبِّ أَهَانَ, my Lord has humiliated me. He has disgraced me. He has disrespected me. What happens is, the nature of the human being, when a person is so used to having everything their own way, they consider themselves entitled to that blessing. Just like in Surah Kahf, the two people with the gardens, one of them said what? وَمَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. Oh, these gardens, they will never perish. وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً. What qiyamah? وَلَئِن رُجِعْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. And if I go back to my Lord, I'm going to have better than what I have now. When you acknowledge that you belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when your car breaks down, you get angry at your car. When your child does something that causes friction, you get angry and upset with your child. When you express your anger, your emotions to the things that belong to you, or the things that are a part of you, like your family, right? And let's be real. we snap quicker at our family members than we would someone on the street. When you own something, you deal with it differently. When you say inna lillah, you have just acknowledged that I don't own anything. I am owned. I belong to Allah. So anything that happens, let it happen. Because I belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one that is pulling the strings. So when you immediately make that acknowledgement, it sets everything into perspective. Your patience will kick in. You thought you were entitled to something, you thought you deserved it all. Well, guess what? We belong to Allah. We don't deserve anything. Anything that we get is a gift. Me standing here, moving my hands around, being able to see, hear, smell, breathe, taste, all my abilities, all my capacity, I did not deserve this. I did not earn this. It is all a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. This is another thing that will set everything into perspective. Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter how deep I am in the hole. One day it will all end. Because I will end. Because we will end. There is no misfortune. There is no setback that is permanent. Because we have to go to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to go back. So that problem will be over. And if we observe patience, then we will have the glad tidings. Bashir as-sabirin. Give glad tidings to those who are patient. Bashir. This is the gift. This is the gift of sabr. Wa bashir as-sabirin. Bashir is a command. It is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Give the glad tidings to those who are patient. If a person observes patience and keeps his calm and keeps his cool and keeps himself collected, and again, to develop this habit of saying inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un immediately. Look at the wording. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said alladhina idha asabatum musiba qalu. Allah did not say faqalu. No, immediately something happens, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Your car doesn't start, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. If you can develop this and allow this to internalize, then inshaAllah, Allah will make us amongst those who will be congratulated directly by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for our patience. This is the ajr and reward of sabr. Now I promised in the beginning that this khutbah was going to be about the balance in religion, right? Inshallah, that I will talk about next week. The other side of the fence. This week was about everything that happens from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically. Next week I will share with you what you do to bring things upon yourself. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst the true followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to grant us the understanding of the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept in the religion of Islam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.